Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the history of the Irish in Maine. Stay tuned for more of Bill Green's Maine. Earlier in our program, we asked you our trivia question. We pointed out that Dr. Richard Malone is the Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Portland, and also pointed out that there had been 10 previous to him. Of these 11 Catholic bishops of Portland, how many have been of Irish ancestry? And the answer is all 11. They are Bacon, Healy, O'Connell, Walsh, Murray, McCarthy, Feeney, Garrity, O'Leary, Jerry, and now, of course, Malone. The history of the Irish in Maine is indeed fascinating. We hear repeatedly the story of people who started with very little and rose to make amazing contributions to Maine and America. I got together with a couple of Irish Americans at the Maine Irish Heritage Center and learned about the fascinating history of the Irish in Maine. For many, St. Dominic's Catholic Church is the center of Irish life in Maine. Its high vaulted ceilings and beautiful stained glass windows were built as a labor of love by Irish immigrants. The church closed in 1997 because of a dwindling congregation. Vinnie O'Malley, an Irish American through and through, told me how it became the home of the Maine Irish Heritage Center in 2003.
The first 22 Catholics in Portland founded a church not far from here, St. Dominic's, the second oldest church in the state of Maine. And for a lifetime, this has been a place, not just for Irishmen, but in particular for Irish people, to be able to come and rally.
The building is on the National Register and was home to a number of community events until May of 2006. That's when this 5,000-pound brass bell fell through 2 floors in the tower before coming to rest 50 feet below.
Oh, baby. Yeah.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. You can see there's the floor that was just above this. That was a full floor. It hit that, took that down, came down to this level where you can see the bricks where there was another floor, full floor. It took that floor out and landed here in a heap.
The calamity closed the building for public events. Irish Center leaders are trying to restore the tower and church, which still houses non-profits and Irish cultural materials. While many of Irish descent are Catholic, many are not. In fact, the first Irish to immigrate to Maine were Presbyterians. Michael Conley is a St. Joe's professor who has authored this book about the Irish in Maine.
But the first Irish that arrived in Maine actually came from the northern part of Ireland, Ulster, and they were largely Presbyterian, not Roman Catholic. And they left Ireland for the same reason that the Catholics would leave later on. They were being persecuted.
They dispersed mostly along the coast and were generally successful and prosperous. That cannot be said of those who fled the famine. 1 million Irish immigrated in the late 1840s when the potato crop failed for 5 straight years. Several thousand came to Maine.
They came here because there were jobs available, and one of the chief ones was longshore work, loading and unloading the vessels coming into Portland. Since the 1850s, Portland had been tied to Montreal, and so grain had to be transshipped out of Portland every winter from November until April. So there was plenty of work.
Michael and Vinnie laugh at the amount of exaggeration that surrounds the story of Irish immigration. For example, there were not nearly as many in the IRA as have come to this country and claimed such status.
Because if you matched up everybody who was in the IRA, who came over here and claimed that membership, we would have just decimated the Brits in a week, and went to the Riviera for breakfast.
The Irish Catholics who came to Maine provided labor for a number of industries, such as the Longshoremen's Union. They worked hard and played hard. Well known for gaiety and fun, they were also known to drink and fight. Vans that picked up the arrested had an Irish name until recent years.
Well, Paddy Wagon is a good example. I mean, every ethnic group that's come into America has had a transition period. And the Irish did, for sure, have their transition period. Many Paddies did end up in jail for too much consumption of alcohol or other problems.
As education was made available to the Irish, incredible stories of success began. John Ford, one of America's greatest film directors, was an altar boy here at St. Dominic's. The son of a Portland longshoreman, Joe Brennan, showed incredible mobility in a single generation by becoming Maine's 2-term governor and congressman. And George Mitchell of Waterville, who was half Irish, became not only Maine's senator, but one of the greatest diplomats in American history.
And he's a good example. He has Irish connections, strong Irish connections, and look at what he's done, not only for the state of Maine, but for the country as a whole. And now, as we're speaking today, they just had elections in Northern Ireland yesterday in preparation for restoring peaceful, devolved government in Northern Ireland, and he played an incredible role in that.
It's fair to say our Irish heritage faces the same challenge as all others here in America's great melting pot. The Irish are no longer downtrodden or excluded. In fact, one big challenge is protecting their Irish identity.
Well, there was an interesting book written a few years ago by an Irish historian from Chicago, and the title was The Irish Diaspora in America, the dispersal of the Irish, as with the Jews and all other groups. And his final chapter was Moving to the Suburbs, and the subtitle was From Someplace to No Place. So there is a fear that subsequent generations will lose their connections.
It's hard to imagine our Irish heritage being lost, just as it's hard to imagine America without the Irish. And the Irish Heritage Center and other groups are trying heroically to protect that identity. Their contribution, written with tenacity, pride, energy, and intellect, has helped make our state and country what they are today. Now, my mother came from England, but on my father's side, we claim French, Canadian, and Irish ancestry, so I, too, can claim to be among the Irish. Besides, this time of year, everyone's Irish. That's our program for this week. If you'd like to know more about the people, places, and things we visited, and read a little blog from me about this show, check out our websites, WCS86.com, WLBZ2.com. Click on the Bill Green's Maine section. There'll be more information there. Thanks so much for being with us. Enjoy the spring and the St. Patrick's Day season, and we hope to see you next Saturday night at 7 for another edition of Bill Green's Maine.